from Israel, and welcome to the team of SARL. And I think we can get started. I'll leave it to you, Yinon, and the team. I'll just mute myself.
Shalom, everyone. Good to see you again. Good to meet new people. Thank you, Stephen and Liz, for arranging it. It's a great tool that we have that we can talk to each other and meet each other even though we are far away. Can everybody hear me well? Okay, that's great. So sitting with me today is Ibrahim. He's the manager of the Asian department at SARL, and Reuven Doron, who is our Ministerial Relations Director. He will be the main speaker for today. He will talk about a region in Israel that has been there for thousands of years, the heart of the land of the Bible, but nowadays it is hardly being visited. And there is a full richness of many sites and possibilities of visiting in this region, Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. So Reuven will discuss about it later. So I'm sure that many of you are asking about the current situation in Israel in regards to the tourism, coronavirus. Of course, we are all waiting for you and your groups to come back to Israel. Currently, there is no incoming tourism yet, but there are some positive updates and developments that are happening nowadays in Israel. So I will give you a short, brief update on the situation. So Israel had a first wave of coronavirus back in the month of March. The country dealt with it quite good. Israel back then was considered to be the third best country in the world in treatment of the virus. But then we had the second wave, and the second wave hit Israel quite hard. But I'm happy to let you know that the new cases are decreasing every day. So if we were talking about 2,000 new cases every day about 3 to 2 weeks ago, we are around 1,000 nowadays. So we can see a clear decrease in new cases. And part of the reason of the high numbers of new cases is that the number of testings has been increased. So they test more people, of course they get more results. But inside the country, since everything is under control, there is a new national policy and a new manager of the crisis of Corona, fight against Corona. Professor Gamzo is skillfully working to fight against it. The government is giving him lots of power and authority, and we see that it's working. So we still need to wear the face masks in Israel, but internally, inside the country, mostly life is as usual. So we continue to do our daily life. We work at the office. We talk with you now from our offices. Public transportation, everything is open. Gyms and swimming pools were open last week. And soon they will open cinemas, theaters, and other things with culture and free time for people. The airport official opening date is in 6 days, 16th of August, for green countries first, mainly European countries. So there are some European countries that are accepting Israelis and that said they will allow people to go to Israel. So that will happen early next week. So we hope that it will be a quick restart for tourism. Other countries are not yet allowed in, but we expect that the government will find the right way to do it. They are now working on establishing a test center at our airport, Tel Aviv airport. So people will get off the plane, will be able to get tested on the spot and get quick results within a few minutes. Green countries that are coming to Israel will not need to be quarantined after their arrival. So that's a very good progress. Most hotels in Israel have reopened. So locally, people are touring around and visiting the hotels. Hotels are full with some limitations and new regulations of, especially in regards to food. So buffet is not working anymore in the hotels. So people would go sit down, separated from other tables, and then the waiter would come and offer the food, and then he will bring the food to the table. So that's quite the only change. As some of the progress that we are doing as a company, and I think we talked about it last time, we have these new air filters on our buses. It's called the Aura Air Filtration System. It's about 40 centimeters diameter device that is installed in our buses. And this is cleaning the air of the bus about 6 or 7 times in an hour. Yeah. And so the air will be continuously purified, not limiting us to capacity. And the company itself says that you don't even need to put a face mask on the bus while this is working. This is proven to kill 99-point-something% of viruses in the air. It was tested. It is being used in hospitals in Israel successfully, especially in the corona parts of the hospital. So it's being worked, it's being tested, it's working well. And we are now on a daily basis installing it in all our buses. So when you book with us, you will have this on our bus to give your people a sense of security. People will be able to log in with an app to this device, and they will see the situation of the air on the mobile phone while they are sitting on our buses. So I think this is very important. And we are trying to take more steps that will allow us to get better and get ready for tourism when it comes back. We have continued in Sarel to develop new content, new materials. The main thing is the Sarel Academy. We have published about 5 to 6 videos yesterday in Indonesian. So 5 to 6 sites, including Tel Aviv and Pool of Bethesda in Jerusalem, Jaffa, and other sites in Indonesian. These are very good quality videos. So I will type in the YouTube address so you can have a look. And you may use it for yourself, enjoyment, increase your knowledge, and also share it with your clients. So we want you to use it as a marketing tool. Show the Holy Land to your people when they cannot come. And I would like to thank Cecilia, who is with us in this meeting, for giving her voice to this project. Thank you, Cecilia.
My pleasure.
So that's enough for me. Let's get into the content of today. Reuven is here with Judea and Samaria. Thank you, everybody.
Well, hello, folks, and shalom. Welcome to the Zoom, and in a technical way, welcome to Israel. Now, you know and we know that travel to Israel, while it is a beautiful destination in itself and a great experience, which has been Sarel's mission for the last 28 years nearly, it is special than any other destination around the world because it is the land of the Bible. And we've seen people of all sorts of faith backgrounds, of course, especially Christians, which has been Sarel's specialty, but not just Christians. We see, of course, Jewish audiences coming in. We see Muslims who are coming in. We see people of other faiths who are nevertheless excited in their hearts to be in the land that is so tightly connected with the scriptures, the Bible still being the best sell book on the planet. And so when I think, and I firmly believe that when we come out of this Corona season and learning our lessons, and the world will hopefully get back to a new kind of normal, that we will see a new harvest of interest, a new harvest of hearts that are going to be interested and compelled to connect with the roots of our faith. And so we really are glad to report that this has always been in the heart of Sarel's efforts, everything that we do. And as Yinon already mentioned, Sarel Tours is much more than a tour company. It became Sarel Group. And so we build our own hotels. We provide our own restaurant services. We have our own fleet of transportation. We have our own media company that is also going to be at your service whenever you bring media-related clients to Israel. We have our own media production company to help you. And then we have our own Sarel Academy, which is the educational division of Sarel Tours. And that's where we offer content to biblical-minded people, curious-minded people who want to learn about how the land speaks to the heart of people of faith. And as the director of Sarel Academy, this has been a pleasure to work. And as Yinon mentioned, we've spent the last few months of less traffic preparing a lot of content that a lot of it is already prepared for you online at sarelacademy.com. The link is going to be shared with you afterwards. And of course, Facebook and Instagram and all those platforms include that as well. So today's topic, we wanted to just give you a little bit of a taste of a new region in Israel that we do try to promote to many of our groups and many of our visitors. And I think it is gradually picking up. It is basically the area of Judea and Samaria, what is politically called the West Bank. You see, the next slide will show you that how the country of Israel is actually geographically built. You see the coastal plains on the left side of the picture, which is, of course, the Mediterranean coast. More than half of the population of Israel lives on the coast. Of course, Tel Aviv is the largest metroplex, about 3.5 million folks. We have Netanya, we have Caesarea, we have Haifa up north, our largest commercial port. And so the coastal plains are beautiful. The coasts of Israel are some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. But then as you move to the center of the country, you see the mountain ridge, the green areas. These would be the mountains of Judea and Samaria. The way they're called in the Bible are the mountains of Israel. And really much of the biblical history, when you read the stories about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, when you read the stories about the tribes of Israel settling the land under Joshua, many of the prophets and many of the miracles, and even the travels of Jesus when he came on the scene, a lot of the biblical accounts took place in the mountains of Israel, in the mountainous area, the mountainous spine in the center of the country, because as you see, as you drop down to the right side of the picture, you are back down in the Jordan Valley. The Syrian-African rift, the longest and deepest tectonic rift on the face of the planet that goes all the way from southern Turkey to Central Africa. And in that rift, of course, we find the famous Jordan River, the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee, and a lot of the miracles of Jesus took place in that region. But today we wanted to just share with you a few exciting sites in the mountains of Israel, Judea and Samaria. The next slide on the left side is just a political picture map of Israel. The center picture will show you a lot of vineyards and olive orchards are found in those mountainous regions. They're very good for agriculture of a mountainous kind. And the picture below is the city of Shem. You might remember that from the scriptures, the first place that Father Abraham made it to. The patriarchs dwelt in that region. It is in the center of the West Bank, one of the largest Palestinian cities in the region of Samaria. Last I've checked, was more than 300,000 Palestinian residents, a beautiful location. We were just there filming a few weeks ago, and I was again impressed how beautiful the mountains of Samaria are. And actually in the very far distance of that picture, you see the Mediterranean coast. And so you remember the land of Israel is not very large. In that part of the land, the full width of the country is less than 80 kilometers. And where we took that picture is about right in the middle of the land of Israel, between the coast on the one side and the Jordan Valley on the other side. This is a photo that some of you might remember is from the cave of the patriarchs. And it is in the city of Hebron, in the heart of the mountains of Judea, south from Jerusalem, not too far, about 45, 50-minute drive. We were there not too long ago visiting. It's also, again, one of the largest Palestinian communities in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. There are, of course, Jewish communities surrounding the area, and so there's a healthy mixture of population between Israeli Jews who are dwelling in the region and the Palestinian Arabs who are there for, many of them, for hundreds of years. And so I'm glad to report to you that in general, the populations mix very well. And with the groups that we sent in and out of the city of Hebron, are all passing through safely and are having a good time. This particular picture is of the cave of the patriarchs. This is the burial place that is recognized by all three major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. All recognize this is the spot where Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their wives, and some other of the patriarchs are buried. And so it's a very serious magnet for a lot of pilgrimage. There's an active synagogue and an active mosque operating inside 24/7, just about. And the interesting thing is that once a year, the synagogue and the mosque actually flip. And the Jews can go worship in the mosque, and the Muslims can come worship in the synagogue in order to draw near to some of the precious spots within the very complex of the burial caves. Very fascinating place. We'd love to introduce you to it next time you're in Israel. The next slide is from the site of Herodion. Some of you will recognize the name. Of course, it is a derivative of the name of Herod, King Herod the Great, who is very known for some of his incredible building projects that he put together in the land of Israel during the times of Jesus, a little bit before, a little bit after. And Herodion is actually his monument to himself. He built an artificial mountain just a couple of miles south from Jerusalem, very close to Bethlehem, beautiful vistas. We were just on the top of it a few weeks ago filming, and I was again impressed how beautiful the region of Samaria is. And when our archaeologists began to dig in and excavate Herodion, we discovered a very impressive mausoleum. King Herod the Great built that for himself to memorialize his legacy. Of course, he's best known today around the world as the king who tried to kill baby Jesus in Bethlehem. But the leftovers and the archaeological findings of his projects are very impressive. And we would love to introduce your groups to Herodion, a short drive from Jerusalem. And it offers you fantastic vista of the entire Judean region. You see the cities of Hebron, of Bethlehem, Jerusalem, many communities dotting the region. And it is a very impressive piece of archaeology that correlates to very known Bible stories. Herodion in Judea. The next slide shows us some of just the beauty of the area. Again, in the middle of it is some of the water holes, some of the oases in the Judean wilderness. You have numerous springs of water. Probably the most known one is the En-Gedi oasis, where David penned quite a number of the famous Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside the still waters. He probably wrote those words in the canyon of En-Gedi, which is in the Judean wilderness by the Dead Sea. The picture on the right side of the slide is from the Kelt Canyon, a beautiful deep canyon that is stretching between Jerusalem towards Jericho. And in it, this is for more of an adventurous, active group, I would say. You can find the monastery of St. George, a very beautiful monastery, hundreds of years old, a very rewarding hike for the active group. I would say the next time that you are bringing over a young group, young in heart, who are willing to commit a half a day to a beautiful wilderness hike, we would love to take them to the St. George Monastery. Next, in the region of Judea and Samaria would be the site of Bethel. Some of you might recognize the words from the scriptures. It is the famous story when Jacob fled from his father and mother's home after he was lying to his father Isaac and stole the birthright from his brother Esau. So this was a hard time for Jacob, and he ran away from home. His mother sent him to take shelter with his uncle Laban, which was living in the land of basically present-day Syria. He was heading up north, and on his way north from his parents' home in Judea, he passed through the area of Bethel. At the time, it was a desolate hilltop in Judea, very close to Jerusalem, maybe a few minutes drive. But he went to sleep, the Bible says, and had a dream. And some of you might remember the dream. He saw a ladder standing on the earth with its head up to the heavens. And he saw angels of God going up and down the ladder, carrying up missions and messages. And on the top of the ladder, he saw the Lord, God of Israel. And God spoke to him and said, Jacob, I'm going to keep you, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to bring you back to the land. When Jacob woke up in the morning, he was so impressed and so moved that he poured water on the stone that he laid his head on the night before, the stone that served as his pillow. He poured water upon it, sanctified the spot, and called it Bethel. In the Hebrew language, Bethel is two words. It means Bet, the house, El, the short name for God, the house of God. And he called that hilltop the house of God because he says, this is the house of God, the dwelling place of the Lord, and the gate to heaven. Today, we'd love to introduce your groups to Bethel. It is a beautiful community in Samaria, just a little bit north from Jerusalem, and of course, the traditional site of Jacob's vision, a very important spot and a very wonderful spot to tell the story and to remember the promise. From Bethel, we would love to take you to Shiloh. It's just a little bit north from Bethel, moving north through the central roads, Highway 16, riding through Samaria. We'd run into the city of Shiloh. Shiloh is an ancient community that is very well known in the Bible. You might remember when the 12 tribes of Israel came from Egypt during the Exodus, they moved into the promised land and they began to conquer the region. They began to conquer the different territories. And as soon as enough of the land was secured, they positioned the tabernacle of meeting, the tent of meeting that Moses built for them in the wilderness in Sinai still. They positioned it in Shiloh. And for more than 360 years, the tabernacle of God was resident in Shiloh with the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, the Ark of the Covenant of God spent more time in Shiloh than it ever spent in Jerusalem. And very few people recognize that. And so when archaeologists began to dig up the site in the last 80 or so years, they discovered an incredible find, rich archaeological site of the tabernacle, of the central place of worship for the tribes of Israel. The mountains surrounding that site were the camping area of the 12 tribes of Israel when they came up 3 times a year to worship God, to worship Jehovah. And archaeologists found plates and silverware and potsherds and all sorts of kitchenware scattered all over the mountainsides around Shiloh, which is where the tribes of Israel came to worship God. A beautiful site with archaeological and biblical significance that's been developed in a very impressive way. Every group that gets there say this is one of the highlights of their visit. Shiloh in Samaria. Short distance from Shiloh, we would love to take your group, and we've been there ourselves not too long ago filming one of the newest episodes for Sarel Academy videos, and you can see it on the sarelacademy.com site, is outside the city of Ariel, one of the large Jewish communities in Samaria. There is some developers created a model replica of the tabernacle and of the actually area of meeting where the priests and the Levites were bringing in the sacrifices to the holy place and to the Holy of Holies as part of Israel's worship of the living God. And so the actual tabernacle was recreated in true dimensions. What you see in the upper picture is the true dimensions of the real wilderness tabernacle that Moses erected with Aaron, with the Levites, and they carried it with them for 40 years in the wilderness, and eventually it was settled in Shiloh. Well, the replica of it was recreated right here in the city of Ariel in Samaria, and every group that gets there gets to see kind of a mini modeling of how the priests of Israel worked in the holy place, how the sacrifices were offered, how the fire of God fell upon the altar, and it never fails to be a very moving experience for every pilgrim. Next picture is from Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, 2 tall mountains in the northern part of Samaria. Those of you who remember the scriptures in the Bible, the story, this was a commandment that Moses gave to Joshua. Moses knew that he's not going to enter the promised land, but Joshua will lead the people. And God put it in his heart to direct Joshua. And he told him in these words, he says, when you come into the promised land, bring the people to the mountains of Ebal and the mountains of Gerizim, 2 tall mountaintops in the northern part of Samaria. divide the nation. 6 tribes will stand on the one mountain slopes. 6 tribes will stand by the other mountain, and let the Levites and the priests recite God's laws and the commandments to keep, and then the blessings and the curses that will follow depending on the obedience or the disobedience of God's people. It was a very moving event. And then Joshua was commanded to build an altar, and that's the altar that you see in those photographs. The famous Joshua altar was discovered on the top of Mount Ebal. I was there with Yinon myself just a few weeks ago, shooting one of our newest films for the Sarel Academy. A very moving experience. This was the first thing that the tribes of Israel had done as soon as they entered the Holy Land. As soon as they captured enough territory, they built a massive altar on the top of the Mount Ebal, brought tremendous amount of offerings to the Lord. Archaeologists found thousands upon thousands of bones of kosher, clean animals, which were offered on this altar. When all of Israel stood by, 6 tribes by Mount Ebal, 6 tribes by Mount Gerizim, reciting the commandments of the Lord. A very moving experience for every group. And we hope this will start catching more popularity. And as when you start bringing traffic to Israel, we will be sure to remind you to consider driving through Samaria and seeing those sites. I think we have another slide. Of course, this is from the village of Sebastia, which is the ancient city of Shomron, the capital city of the northern kingdom of Israel. Remember that Israel split into 2 kingdoms for a number of centuries. We had political upheaval and confusion back there, just like we have today. And so the kingdom split in 2, and the northern kingdom had their own capital. Instead of Jerusalem, they established it for a while in the city of Shomron, Samaria, which today is the village of Sebastia. Beautiful spot to visit. We'd love to introduce your group to that. A very short distance away from Mount Ebal and Gerizim that we saw before. And right next to these sites, there's one of the tallest mountaintops in Samaria. It's called Mount Kabir. Kabir is the local dialect for great. It's got a great mountain, an awesome mountaintop. And when you get to the top of the mountain, and we were there just a short time ago, you see a vista that is unbelievable. The full beauty of the mountains of Samaria, the Jordan Valley, the Galilee in the distance, and right below the valley on the left side of the left photograph, you see the valley of Tirza. This is a large valley that leads right from the Jordan Valley into the regions of Shem, Mount Ebal, Mount Gerizim. And so we know from history and from scripture, this is the valley that the 12 tribes of Israel, millions of Hebrews, were coming through this valley into the promised land after they crossed the Jordan. A very moving spot for every person of faith to visit. And I think this might be our last spot. We should really get a few more photos of this particular spot. This is from the Good Samaritan Inn. You remember the story? Jesus told us the parable, the famous parable. One of the lawyers, one of the teachers of the law in his time, probably a Pharisee, came and asked him, well, who's my brother? Who am I supposed to take care of in life? And the Lord told him a story about the Good Samaritan. You remember the parable? It was a very moving parable about real dynamics, everyday life in first century Israel. They all could relate to the story because all of them knew the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. There was a road. It was a pilgrim road. Millions of people walked that road every year. And somewhere in the middle between Jerusalem and Jericho, there was an inn. It is still there. The archaeological discoveries and the leftovers of the famous Good Samaritan Inn are still there. And we would love to take your group. It's a short hop from Jerusalem, a few minutes drive, on Highway 1 between Jerusalem and Jericho. And you get to be on location sharing the story of Jesus about the Good Samaritan, who was the only one, not the priest, not the Levite, not the big shots, but it was the humble Samaritan who wasn't even a Jew, who took care of the guy who was left to die on the road to Jericho. A very moving spot to visit. And of course, throughout the mountains of Judea and Samaria, throughout the mountain ridge of central Israel, you'll find dozens of wineries. It is a very famous area today in Israel. Probably in the last 20 years, We had numerous wineries planted all over Israel, many of them in the mountainous range, and some of them on the Golan Heights, because the mountain weather is very good for the local types and the local brands of Middle Eastern wineries. Many of them have been gaining international renown. They won all sorts of prizes with international wine competitions. And some of the trip, some of the visit is to just see and even taste some of those great wines as you pass through the mountains of Judea and Samaria. I think that's all we have, Yinon. And we'll share more with you when you get to Israel. And of course, again, you're welcome to check the sarelacademy.com. That is Sarel Academy, one word, .com. And you'll find a number of resources for you and for your clients. God bless you.
Thank you, Reuven. So that's a new region in Israel that I think most Indonesian market is hardly visiting it. So let us know if you have any question about this region, if you want to know about different itineraries. We will happily share with you and show you how you can create a tour to this region. Usually we are doing it from Jerusalem. It's a one-day tour, which will cover most of the sites you have seen. If you want to see them all, it's about 2 days from Jerusalem. So perhaps keep it for a long tour or for 2 tours, few sites for each tour. So I think now we can go to questions and answers. If anybody has any question, we will be happy to answer.
Hi, Yinon. There is a question from Bu Cecile. There's a question that says, can we visit the St. George Monastery? What she means is touring inside the monastery.
Yeah, so the monastery is possible for visiting. It's open for specific times, so we have to adjust the tour. The walk to the monastery is not an easy walk. You are coming to top of a mountain and you have to go down a canyon and then up again to the monastery. So it's not an easy walk. There are some Bedouin people with donkeys. So you can take donkey down. It's about half an hour donkey ride each way, but it's worth it. It's beautiful. It's very nice. And by the way, this is the region where probably Prophet Jeremiah wrote many of his prophecies in the Wadi Kelt and Judean desert.
So a bit of fitness is required for it. Is it quite a long walk? Or
That's an adventure. Yeah, the walk I think is about half an hour to 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's not very long, but you need to be in pretty good shape to do it. And so I would say this would be very appropriate to groups that are looking for some adventure and that are willing to sweat a little bit to get there. But it's well worth the effort.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, is there a question? Oh, someone came in a little bit late, but she was asking Indonesian citizen at the moment still cannot get into Israel. Is that correct?
Yeah, so now nobody other than Israeli passport holders can get into Israel. And the official opening date for green countries is 16 August. So within 5 to 6 days, Israel will allow some European countries first. And Israel will update this once in 2 weeks. So according to the color of a country by the World Health Organization, we have green, orange, and red. So green countries will be able to come in, but there are also talks about allowing people from any country, given that they make a test before arrival, 72 hours before arrival, and another test upon arrival to the airport. So that would probably happen in the next coming weeks. And of course, we will be the first ones to update you when there is such a development. So currently, not yet.
Okay. Thank you. We will also be posting the presentation today on our website. So if you missed it in the earlier one, you can go back and see that. And also if you missed the earlier part, you can also catch up on our YouTube channel. Meanwhile, is there any other question? Oh, here's one more, sorry. When do you think Indonesians will be able to enter Israel for tourism?
We hope as soon as possible. We don't know yet. It's because we need to take into consideration the situation in Israel and in Indonesia and in Jordan, because most Indonesians are coming from Jordan. We hope that it will be soon, probably at the end of the year, towards the end of the year, but nobody knows. We have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a bit concerning with what's happening around the world, but the good news is I think the vaccine is coming along quite well. So hopefully when that's out, it will help a lot of borders to be open. But hang in there, everyone. Yeah, thank you for tuning in every week. And we do what we can to keep you updated during this time that we can't sell. So by the time you can sell really, really well. It was really helpful, especially for me, to listen to all these updates. Any other question while we have Yinon, Ibrahim, and the team there?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ibrahim. I'm the Asian Department Manager at SRL Tools. In my department, I have 12 operators taking care of the Asian market, and also Indonesia is part of it. We will send to Stephen and Lise the most updated email about the situation in Israel, so they can share it with you, so you can have it on a written email. About your future requests, if you need any new itineraries, including the sites that we present to you today, so please send an email to Stephen and Lise, and they will take care of it. We will make sure to send you the needed materials. And also, if you have any requests for any rate offers for the end of this year or for next year, so this is the time. We have good rates with the hotels, and because of the situation, they want to help us to help you to sell better. So if you have any requests till the end of this year or for next year, so this is the time to send it to get better rates from the suppliers. And if you need any ideas for new itineraries, not only the one that you use, we are open. We have a lot of types can serve a lot of type of tours, starting from youth tours, Catholic Massive, and also even hiking tours and adventure tours. So if you have any idea, would be happy to assist you to make it come true. So anything you need, we are here to help you, and feel free to contact Stephen and Lise for any question or information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Yes, please do send any request to us, and we are getting some like quotation requests already, even though it's we're not clear when it will be open. There is another question here for Yinon. It's regarding the PCR testing upon arrival. When you can go in there. Is the testing covered by the government, or do you have to, as a traveler, have to pay?
Yeah, this topic is being discussed today itself by the government. A few days ago, they announced for companies who would like to have this test, to operate this test center, and an Israeli company called MyHeritage, you might have heard about them. They're doing a genetic test. They got it. They are now recruiting about 140 new scientists that will operate this lab. So we are not sure yet who will cover the cost. Most probably it will be the government, but we are not sure. So we will have to wait and see in the coming days.
Okay. So at this time, you're not sure whether the government will cover, or is it traveler? I think in a lot of countries, the traveler has to cover the cost. But I guess the good thing about this webinar is that you're on every month. And so if you want to know the update, you tune in next month. There's probably going to be a new update from Israel. So we probably know a little bit more in the future, I guess. Is that right, Yinon?
Yes, certainly. Things are changing on a daily basis. So if anything major happens, we will update you. I would like to invite you to join our Facebook page. We have 170,000 followers, and they are getting our updates. Every time we update something, new content, new ideas, new videos, and updates about the situation. So get into our Facebook, subscribe, like, and you get the updates. And other than this, of course, we will do these webinars regularly, and we will update you with new updates.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Last chance for any question before we go. If not, if you have a question that you forgot to ask, you can always WhatsApp or email Liz and myself, and we can get back to Yinon and Ibrahim and team there, and we can answer that. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the detailed information about Samaria and Judea today. It's very interesting, and hopefully we all can go and visit those sites very soon. And thank you everyone for coming in today, and hopefully it helps. And again, any question, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you. And we'll see you next time in our webinar.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Steven.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Selamat siang semuanya. Terima kasih ya.
Bye.